about spaceships. It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason Ward, and with me is Rob, the Mr. Sketchcraft.
Hey you.
And we are going to be talking about Indiana Jones. We're going to be talking about some Star Wars. And today is the weirdest Indiana Jones day yet, in that it appears that Boyd Holbrook is playing Mutt Williams in it. And if you remember, what Mutt Williams was Shia Labeouf's character in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the fourth Indiana Jones film. Yesterday, I talked about how that was a rumor. I'm like, there's a rumor he's playing Mutt Williams, but I don't think so, just looking at this. And then, meanwhile, over in Glasgow, in the fake set of New York, 1969, during a parade welcoming the Apollo astronauts home, we see something that completely seems to make this make sense. So here is the photo that came out today. So there you go. Now, what do you think the odds of this not being Mutt are, Rob?
I mean, that's a definite the Marlon Brando Rebel Without a Cause callback shot. I mean, granted that's someone on the street, so that's not exactly our POV, right? It's not like but I mean, that's the same bike essentially, right? Like,
yeah, I'm not a big motorcycle guy, and I haven't had enough time to like compare it.
Is that the motorcycle?
Motorcycle. Yeah, I know. I haven't got to compare it to like the one that Mutt has in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I do feel like if you're going to have a new sidekick character for Indy by some chance, and he drives a motorcycle, and you didn't make it Mutt.
This one?
That one.
Right there?
Yeah, it looks like it's a little different, but it has the same vibe.
Shield.
Yeah. It has a shield, yeah. Yeah, for all I know, it's the same one, but it looks like the front of the tire looks the same, but the lights in the front on the lower part look a little different, right? So, okay, definitely like a different bike, but
it's a different bike,
but it's same vibe. Yeah, I mean, that would be like the biggest on-screen slap in the face to the original or to the last film if they just got a new Mutt. Uh-oh. No.
Just do it. Like
and really quickly to a chat, I want to say hello to a chat. We will make sure to talk to everyone. Hello, Santa. Hello, obviously, Subdude. Thank you guys for coming by today. Yeah, so also my good buddy Christopher, he sent me this story while we were getting ready to go. Let me pull it up right now. See, this one is huge and bizarre. Deadline is reporting Indiana Jones 5, Antonio Banderas, latest addition to the next installment in franchise by Justin Kroll. Is that Kroll? Okay, yeah. Exclusive, Antonio Banderas is Harrison Ford's newest co-star in the highly anticipated next installment in the Indiana Jones franchise, as the Oscar-nominated actor has closed a deal to join the film. Beside Ford, who returns as our favorite archaeologist, he will join an all-star ensemble cast that already includes Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Mads Mikkelsen, Boyd Holbrook, Shawnette Renee Wilson, and for Banderas, the film marks another major franchise for the international star. So, strangely, I'm not a huge fan of really big movie stars necessarily showing up in my Star Wars films. My Indiana Jones films, I kind of have to give a little bit of a pass once you have like Dan Aykroyd showing up in bit roles just because he wanted to be in the movie and stuff like that. Like, and
he wanted his vodka to be in the movie.
Yeah, right. But at the same time, like, I feel like Antonio Banderas has been pretty low profile in terms of being a huge movie dude recently. Like, I haven't seen a movie with him in quite a while, and I think like really truly the only movie I love with him is probably Desperado and Interview with a Vampire, which wasn't my ideal Armand, but since it would be weird to make a 17-year-old ready to make out with Brad Pitt, I get why they did it.
But let's be honest, you're probably forgetting The Mask of Zorro is pretty amazing. The first one?
I don't remember. You know what? I saw it and I don't remember it.
It is a super fun movie. You got to get past if you can get past the fact that Sean Connery plays a Spaniard in the Highlander films, you can get past.
I have.
Right, then you can get past Anthony Hopkins pulling that one off again. Other than that, but it is a really good. That first one is really good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, looking at this right now, like, I don't know if the podcast still exists or not, but I used to have an Indiana Jones podcast I did for a little while, but the production would never get going. I didn't want to talk. Nobody I had with me wanted to talk about archaeology, so it's kind of couldn't really go down weird roads with it. So it kind of just stalled out, right? But what I said on that show was my dream for Mutt was to set it during Vietnam. My dream for Mutt was that he becomes a photojournalist, because at the end he has the camera. Like in the end in the wedding, he doesn't get the hat, but he gets the camera. And I was like, how do you make an Indiana Jones spinoff? How do you pass that torch? And I was always on board with the torch being passed in the sense that if you're going to do more Indiana Jones movies in spirit, but it's not with Harrison Ford, and it was another character like Mutt, I would have always been okay with it going there. Now, looking at where things went with Shia LaBeouf, you can see how he was maybe a little too bohemian for mainstream Hollywood as it ended up. But in a weird fucking way, this ends up right where he should have been. Is 1969 photojournalist with a bohemian Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Do you think? I mean, jokes. Do you think if he had played like an Andy Warhol type Mutt in the 60s, where you just throw dollar bills at him in performance art, like, because I mean, he had that whole installation art period of his career where Shia just like sat in a room. Did you ever see that, where he sat in a room and he would just you could like pay money and he would just like, you could yell at him and he wouldn't react to it or something? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
Just yell at me and be mean, and then I remember there was one thing that was like a little bit creepy and dangerous, but you know, he was doing like he was doing this one like installation thing, and people like triangulated where he was by figuring out like context clues, and then like driving a car around and honking a horn. And when they heard the horn on the camera, that's where they knew like where he was. Man. It was super creepy.
That is
super weird.
So weird.
That's what always freaks me out. Like, not that anybody cares about me in that way, but like when I have like my mini blinds or something in the shot, I'm like, great, some fucking weirdo is gonna figure it out.
Was the Toad character in American Graffiti a photojournalist in Vietnam when he went overseas?
Yeah, I think so.
I want to think
because
it's been so long since.
I could be wrong about that, but I think so. And then I thought there was a connection between that and what was the Kubrick movie? Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket, yeah.
Yeah, I always thought there was like a connection between those ideas. So I think you're right for that reason, because I thought there was some kind of connective
Joker, Matthew Modine.
Yeah. And then there was this other thing. Okay, so a couple of things have happened too. One is that with the Indiana Jones movie, there's this title going around that's called something Elysium. The Order of Elysium. Is it the title? It beats me. But it was connected to a lot of fake stuff that I know to be fake. And a watcher, I don't know, a viewer, a friend, a Star Wars buddy gave me a link saying, hey, look at this guy's show. And I think his name was Mr. H. I don't know much about the dude on Twitter, on YouTube, but I watched his video. He seemed pretty reasoned, and like, you know, he was like, "Oh, these leaks on Reddit that show like Mads in like a Nazi outfit and the Die Glock machine and all that." He's like, "Oh, that stuff is fake." He also said exactly what I said. Which is why somebody said I should check him out. That Indy doesn't go to space. in the film. And I had heard that too. So I watched his stuff, and he did a breakdown of it. And it turns out he had dealt with this Elysium title some time ago, a few weeks ago, anyways. Hold on, I'm still using this new program that Rob gave me for this, or suggested I use, and it is so much better. But this was tweeted to Club Obi-Wan. Some spoilers from Glasgow. The film is called Order of Elysium, and Phoebe plays a character called Clara Wolf. And you could see like some documents that somebody got a photo of supposedly with that title on there. So don't know if this is just whoever faked the initial thing, and not saying that the person who tweeted it to Club Obi-Wan is faking it either. It's from Reddit, somewhere on Reddit. But is it real? I don't know. I tend to go with the things I have seen in the Star Wars world will never have the Rise of Skywalker written on some documents, even if it has the
Right.
stuff from Mando says Huckleberry. You know what I mean? At one
Yeah.
point, Cassian was White Snake. Then it has a different name now, and I don't know if it's out there, so I don't want to say anything. All of that said, crazier shit's happened, right? I mean,
It really has. Although, I mean, when you say Elysium, I'm like, the Matt Damon movie? Like, maybe that's the moon, right? There's healthcare on the moon, and they go up there. But I mean, joking aside, I can see Elysium, if that has any validity, being more like the single word project name, again, like Huckleberry, right? Like,
right.
it seem, because I mean, Indiana Jones and the Order of Elysium, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know if that. I'd believe more if it was Indiana Jones and the 310 to Yuma. Like, I guess.
Yeah. I'm always afraid of shooting down a title unless it's completely like obviously fake. I feel like if it is called that, I want it to be called the Order of the Elysium for some reason. I don't know why. I just do. I don't even know if that makes sense. It sounds kind of weird, but there is a book called that as well. And once again, there was a fan film called The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
So you
possible.
can never shoot it down. You can never go, oh, well, that exists, so that means it can't. At the same time, and not to say the author of that book is trying to trick anyone to get attention, but it is a hell of a way, if you were a fan of something, to shine a light onto it. You know what I mean? Like
Indiana Jones and the Majestic 12. Like,
yeah, right.
Indiana Jones and Operation Paperclip. Like,
yeah, and so the Die Glock machine, the rumor that was out, that I really don't think the rumor. So let's put it this way. Just, I'm going to be upfront about my indie source is that they're like, we're going to talk. And they shot down some stuff for me, but didn't give me a bunch of stuff. It's not the safe moment in time to blab. Now's the time where if you blab, somebody can get caught. Somebody could be misidentified and fired. And so I don't ever want something like that to happen. So I don't necessarily I don't act like a thirsty child for it. Come on, just give me something source, please. I'm like, no, I mean, these are people's careers and lives, and they're trying to facilitate fun online discussion. That's why most people talk still.
is it a case where because I know marketing materials are generally kind of collated and ready to go about a year in advance.
Yeah.
Is it a case where once those things are put together and there's more of a distribution of info between studios and vendors and licensors and even PR, that becomes more doable? Is that sort of thing?
Yeah, sometimes. The truth is, when it comes to licensing materials, that stuff almost always gets out, almost always comes my way, I mean, but at the same time, those things say a lot and they don't say anything at all, sometimes you can get what the names of things are from that, and then start to make context clues and put movies together. But like when it was funny when I was releasing stuff from episode 9, I would put stuff out there, and after I would put it out there, they would then go ahead and drop that clip soon after because it didn't matter at that point. Like it was already out there, and the clip was going to come, and then it would get moved up. Then you would have these conspiratorial dudes on Reddit. Oh, there you go. He just has a source in marketing. And it's like, no, I don't have a source in marketing. I don't like
in
that.
Marketing?
That just doesn't make sense.
As
it's
a department.
Yeah, like it's Boeing, and there's this room called marketing, and there's all in there typing up stuff, going, "Oh, we have the whole film here," and it's just like, no, that's not how it works, and that's not how this goes down. Like,
I'm reminded of that shot in Dick Donner's Superman when Clark, it's that scene where he tries to follow Lois into the bathroom, and she's like, and so he walks out to the elevator. And there's this hallway of signs like editorial, publicist, and
yeah.
And you think about how little money newspapers make these days, you're just
right.
like, how wealthy is this conglomerate? But yeah, like that marketing, spoilers.
Yeah. It's and like in that instance, like it was a just a hilarious kind of either a hilarious coincidence that like the Goonies scene, that was one in Rise of Skywalker where I had all of that story stuff. I sat on it for months by that point, and then ran it, and then soon after they went and put the clip out. They were already going to put that clip out. That was already ready to go. That was already one of the things that was gonna hit. But I do think it was probably moved up because of that. Could have been a weird coincidence though.
Is the theory, Jason, on the Reddits that Lucasfilm watches or reads your site all day long, and when you draw something, they rush to get something prepared? Like,
well, the one of the hilarious things that I did hear at Celebration from Lucasfilm people was that there is a poor soul who had to transcribe my podcast. And we had fun with that because we would start dropping spoilers in and then talking about him. So he was breaking the fourth wall while he was typing it up. That was fun.
That's so clever. That is so clever.
But yeah, so he was having to write about himself in there. It was Inception. But so anyways, though, when it comes to Indiana Jones and marketing materials, like so much of it is just like, once we saw Harrison Ford out with the hat and the whip the other day, a couple weeks ago now, the Indiana Jones stuff isn't going to get too much beyond that. Like they're not going to sell too many of the other characters super hard. Like even if the Mutt Williams thing turns out to be true, I don't think you're going to necessarily see that over Indiana Jones, unless there's an ageist component to it, which there very well could be. You know what I mean? That they might be like, well, we don't really want to put a 65-year-old or a 70-year-old or actually a 79-year-old man onto a box of Captain Crunch or something like that. So they may show him with Holbrook, like in that kind of scenario. So maybe. But
we can accept the old cartoon captain, right? But
yeah,
not a real one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he could be a cartoon old man, but not a real old man. But who knows, though? I mean, that's all conjecture on my part. I don't know what they'll actually do on that front. And then did I stop this right? I did. Okay, so I did my setup a little bit weird today, and now I noticed that it looks like whenever I'm on camera looking at you, it looks like I'm looking up top. Can't get anything right these days. Let me see if I can make this less annoying. I don't know. Probably not. But does that look like I'm more looking at the chat? Okay. My chat's over here. Oh, shit. Did I just take everything down? Okay. All right. We'll see. I don't know. I'm doing my best.
It doesn't matter where you look. I'm looking all over the place. What does it matter? So
yeah. That's the one thing about, I'm trying to read some stuff today, so that was why I decided to wear my glasses, not my sunglasses. But yeah, anyways, guys, thanks. So really quickly, head over to chat just for a moment, and Star Wars Santa, hello Santa, says good afternoon, and obviously Subdude says hello, which we read again, and Apple Pie check. Okay, Dewey says Rob looks like rapper G-Eazy.
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Sorry for that guy.
Well, I'm going to let it out here that is who Rob is, and he didn't want that out there. And thanks for blowing his cover, and he won't do the show anymore.
I'm gonna be G's. Not so. It's so hard. G's hard. So not a rapper. I do listen to a lot of Mark Rebier. Does that count? I guess he's sort of freestyle. Sure. Yeah. I should start wearing a bathrobe to the.
Josh Stickles says they should get Shia LaBeouf back, especially after Peanut Butter Falcon and the movie loosely based on his childhood he wrote and acted in called Honey Boy, both critically praised. Yeah, I honestly think number one, he's probably not interested in coming back. I think that's probably part of it. At the same time, if we look at the Shia character, or the Mutt character, I should say, as a 20, or an 18-year-old boy at the time, and this is him, about a decade later, who's a man now working, and I think it's like, yeah, he grew up to be Boyd, which is a lot more handsome, just be honest, but at the same time does have the same indie qualities. So I think Boyd makes a better hero.
I could see a situation too, not saying this is the case, where Shia came on to that movie because of Steve. I mean, Steven Spielberg found Shia, right?
Yes.
Gave him his break on the Transformers film. So if Steven isn't coming back, and he's not, I know he's producing, but that doesn't mean much of anything.
Right.
It could just be like he's like, I'm in the Steven camp. If Steven isn't back, I don't want to be a part of it. Kind of thing.
And
too.
For all we know, Steven was just done with Shia professionally for now. Well, he didn't dump what's her face from E.T., Drew Barrymore, when she had her drug problems and stuff like that, but he also wasn't working with her, and so supports her, comes on her talk show and stuff, but at the same time he's a little bit different. He wasn't like a 6-year-old girl when he was in that movie. He said some stupid stuff professionally about the film, like we dropped the ball, just stuff that like you don't really say. On one hand, I respect his candid truth, that's what he thought. On the other hand, I also think that he was I feel like he was unfairly beaten down. I think he was picked on. I think that the concept of Mutt is good. I'm glad he's back, if that's the character. I'm all for it. And I think that, yeah, if monkeys swinging on trees piss you off, cool, but that's not Shia's fault. And it's not his performance's fault either. I don't think his performance was bad in the film. I think
I don't see it being any bigger sin, if you could call it cinema sin or whatever, than Chewbacca doing the Tarzan yell in Return of the Jedi when he swings on a vine. I mean, Chewbacca literally swings on a vine in Return of the Jedi and goes, I mean, like, does the actual Tarzan yell. So
yeah,
I don't know. How is that any? I mean, how does that even? First off, it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So like, how does that? It's just it's so weird, But that gets a pass. No one even talks about it anymore, really. So
no, it's there are certain things that are silly and funny, and then they do completely get a pass once you've just grown up with it. Once the majority of the audience feels like they've grown up with it, they don't care anymore. If Chewie did the Tarzan moment today, oh man, it would be. I could just see YouTube on that one. Like they would just be going crazy about it. It would be like, oh my god, Richard Marquand in the war at Lucasfilm.
They shouldn't let artists direct films. He's never directed anything. Why is the best franchise being handed to this little artist? Why not a real filmmaker like David Lynch? Like
yeah. Which God, I would have died to have seen that though. I mean,
yeah.
Granted, Dune was crap, honestly. there's not a lot of saving grace to his Dune. I mean, there's just stuff that makes it like where I'll still watch it every now and then because I need to remind myself that I don't like it. But also there's things that I do like about it. But he, yeah, I don't think he would have handled it well. I don't think he could have really. I don't think he could have made it work. But to bring it back, this Antonio Banderas thing. So I don't know if we should look at Antonio Banderas and go like, oh yeah, he's a Latino actor, therefore it means this, it means that. Like, I think that's a little bit silly. But there was a casting call on a site called, and I don't know the site. So, and when it comes to like film sites that glean casting calls, I don't know what to make of that usually. I really don't. Like, there's gold there if like that's your angle. Most of those sites pretend like they're scoops, and they don't just say where I got it. I got this from a casting call. I figured this out from which I think is completely just more respectable. You're doing the research. That's just my take though.
Versus making things up.
The GWW.com says that there's a role called Carl, supporting, male, 11 to 14, Hispanic, Latino. Character portrayed as male, he, him, 11, 14 years old. Carl comes from an unnamed South American or Central American country. He is savvy and smart. His education comes from his time on the streets and not in the classroom. Doesn't come from money and mostly takes care of himself. Speaks English, but it's not his native tongue. Accent in English is okay. No need to do an American accent if actor naturally speaks with an accent. So that is a supposed role being that they're casting now. A part of me at first was like, wow, I mean, are they still casting the movie? But then we hear Antonio Banderas probably just signed today. There's always a chance they just got it today, but there you go. And the movie doesn't come out for quite a bit of time.
You want something that just popped in my head?
Yeah.
Other than the fact that Antonio Banderas is not 11 to 14 years old.
No,
so
that's the
maybe
role.
He's his handler.
That's the role. They're de-aging Antonio. He's gonna be.
Remember that Pinocchio film where the guy was like 50? He was the director. The director played Pinocchio, but he was like 50 years old, so he put on makeup. Yeah, like it's like that. He just plays a kid. The Nazis hung out in Argentina, right?
True.
Right. That was Antonio like... Banderas. If Indiana Jones is helping to hunt down Nazis in Argentina,
yeah,
right. I mean, there's like some of those like paranormal stuff there, or paranormal. I say paranormal, not that Nazis are paranormal, but that's generally where this stuff gets lumped into for conversation.
Yeah. Sort of. They're not necessarily neo-Nazis because they just never stopped being Nazis. They're like escaped Nazis. But then you always get into these weird stories about them. Like I said, I believe one of the drafts, and I'm not saying it's this one, but was about a Nazi gold train.
Yeah, because there's like supposedly these whole villages down there in Peru or Argentina and in South America in general. There's like these villages that have like Nazi symbols, and they look like little Bavarian villages. Like they're literally like, you're like, what is this Bavarian village?
Yeah.
Doing in the middle of the South American jungle,
right.
And like with spas and like they just fell in love with that look, so that would be something that hadn't dawned on me until now. I know we keep talking about Nazis in the past and Operation Paperclip, but I could see Indiana going, I know all this territory, it's the end of my life. I'm going to help hunt down these Nazi bastards that are hiding out there, like, or something like that,
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I could see it going a couple of different ways. I mean, just based off of now that we believe Mutt Williams to be in this, and I do believe Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character is rumored to be a photo or a journalist as well. So my speculative guess at the moment is she's the journalist, Mutt is the photojournalist. Maybe they are the ones who stumble upon this story that brings Indy into the mix. And one of the rumors, I don't think the Die Glock rumor is true, but the Die Glock rumor is that the Nazis were building essentially a time machine. Mads Mikkelsen was the character who was a Nazi who wanted to make this time machine post-Nazi regime to go back, fix whatever went wrong for the old Nazis, and then rule the world from 1942 on, or whatever, however he wanted to like do it. Realistically, it would make more sense to get the time machine, go back to well before the war with the technology that the Nazis have, make a superior army, and then just take it all over in 1850. Whatever. But whatever.
well, the Kaiser's army was a lot better actually than the Nazi army. So, but that's a whole nother discussion. I listen. Dan Carlin did a really good. He does Hardcore History, the podcast Hardcore History, and he has a side podcast called Hardcore History Addendum, and he spent an hour once just like wargaming, the World War I's Germany, the Kaiser's army versus the Nazi army, like which one would actually win and why. And so if you're interested in that sort of historical like what ifs, that's a good podcast to listen to. When you said Mutt and Phoebe Waller-Bridge would be down there like photographing, because I'm a 1989 Batman's guy, I was just like the Corto Maltese.
Yeah.
That's a bit different than the Corto Maltese. So.
Yeah, and there's like a couple of different ways that we could take it too. Like she could be Mutt's love interest, and they could be working together. She could also be the competition and actually working against him, and that is continually getting in the way for whatever reason too. Like there's a kind of different, like if they wanted to put a third faction in that's not as evil but competitive, and
starts to feel a little bit more like the National Treasure sequel, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that sense, so it's a little more family-ish, right?
Yeah,
like a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, this is a Disney Indiana Jones movie. I hope not. I mean, the fact, the director who they have makes me think that while he's making a movie in the Disney studio, but maybe it will be, I guess, in a weird way. When I say that out loud, that starts to feel like a really good alchemy for Mangold, like, and then trying to make a movie in the Indiana Jones. That feels like an Indiana Jones movie to me. In spirit, that's kind of what it sounds like.
Even the time machine idea. I know, like you were talking recently about how you're not into the idea of time travel in Star Wars, but Jules Verne's the time machine. H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and H.G. Wells' Time Machine. That's definitely like in the Indiana Jones wheelhouse, right? I mean, to the point where the nuke the fridge scene was the original ending to Back to the Future.
Right. Yeah. That was essentially how you had to time travel without plutonium, and that was their best way, was to get Marty in the fridge out at the test site, and then that would be what sent him back. Yeah. No, and in my opinion, like when it comes to Indiana Jones, like, and I don't mean to step on anybody's religious beliefs or supernatural beliefs for that matter, but once you are having the Ark of the Covenant, once you're having the cup of Christ that gives eternal life, once you have Sankara stones, once you have interdimensional beings, nothing is off the table. And really with Indiana Jones, nothing has ever been off the table. What it ends up coming down to is, what do you want to see on screen? What's screen appropriate? Like if you were doing Indiana Jones serials, you were doing a television show, you were doing comic books or novels, I don't believe anything is off the table, like truly. But it just comes down to
the whiteboarding session. People don't know what the whiteboard is. Anytime you have an idea for something, you go on a whiteboard, you write down every possible thing that could generate from that idea. So in screenwriting, they call it the promise of the premise. So if I say the premise is Indiana Jones in the 60s, what does that imply? And then you write down all those ideas. And you go, Indiana Jones, Nazis. You just start thinking, whoa, Nazis in 60s. What is Nazis in 60s? Space race. And then I could easily see them say, Nazis hiding out in South America, right? What would they do? And you could say, what are all the things surrounded the idea of pulp adventure, high adventure, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, H.G. Wells, Jules Verne. Funny thing about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is the scene in Temple of Doom where they're eating all that, racially insensitive food, right?
Yeah.
is actually a scene from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea when they go onto Nemo's ship, and Nemo's crew brings out this dinner table, and it's all this food that they're like, what is this? And they're not eating it. It's literally that scene. So when people were like, I know people, especially these days, modern YouTube pundits like to, take a proverbial dump on that scene. I'm like, that's from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah.
I mean, say what you want. So like, time travel. So if you go on the whiteboard, you go Nazis hiding out in Germany, Nazi space race, right? Maybe Werner von Braun, right? Time travel. You could just go. All those things are Indiana Jones. You know, like every one of them.
Yeah. The rumor is that basically and I don't think this rumor's true, but I don't have that confirmed. That's just a feeling, and who knows what that means. But that it's the Die Glock machine, and then they basically Mads is building it either for the evil Nazis, as that one rumor says, or all Nazis are evil, but for the Nazis, or he's building it for the Americans, and which would also not be good because that's a power I don't know if man should have. But there's a battery, something that will power it, and that is what they are kind of after. Like they already have the machine and the battery to it. And
you ever read the
and that one dude that Mr. I don't want to be a jerk, and that Mr. H dude breaks it down on here. So I don't, and he did it way before I ever mentioned any of the stuff. So I just don't want to seem like I'm like stealing from that guy. You know what I mean? So like check out his video on it if you haven't seen it. Just want to make sure I cite.
Yeah, definitely. Did you ever read the book 11/22/63?
No.
So it's like my favorite book, and I'm not the biggest Stephen King guy.
But I watched the Hulu miniseries with Franco.
It's a version. You can see like the audio novel definitely listened to Chris Cooper's performance for that character.
Okay.
But the book itself is the book is always better, but that's why the show deals with that. Like the book's always better, right?
Yeah.
But there's a scene early on in the book where he's where the James Franco character. I know it's my favorite book, but right now I'm not good with name recall. Okay, he's talking to Al. Al is the Chris Cooper character, and George, I think, is the main character. And they're talking about. He's like, what do we do with this hole in the wall that we can just walk into time, right? We can go back into the past. There's a cupboard they walk into, and they end up in 1960 or 1958 in the book.
Right.
But Al goes, what do you want to do? Go down to the local historical site and tell them that, hey, there's a time hole, like let everyone know. Don't believe me? Step in and find out. And there's a scene where so in his head, George goes, I would not want the government to have access to unarmed history.
Yeah.
Like, and if you think, like, it's just one of the best lines I ever heard written, like unarmed history. Like history is not prepared for what a 2015, in the book it was 2011, 2013, but a 2015 military, even a 1969 military would do to an 1869 world, right? Or a pre-nuclear weapon world.
Well, and who knows what's true, and not to go off onto the alien stuff. We're doing that on Saturday. But there are rumors that there are exotic materials and that it's in the hands of the government and that it's being experimented on by private industry. And that makes and if that's true, like it kind of almost proves the time travel thesis. We don't get alien disclosure because private industry could make a hell of a lot of money on it. We want to get ahead of things, and a lot of people want to profit off of it. So if we ever did have time travel stuff like that, it ends up being a thing that you would need the most ethical, pure of heart person in the world, a Doc Brown, if you will. And it can't be trusted with a Marty McFly.
Which Doc Brown? Doc Brown in Back to the Futures 2 and 3 is ethical, but the Doc Brown I love
in part one,
first movie, he's super sketchy.
Yeah, you're going to see some serious shit. Yeah,
he does business with militarized Libyans and gives them shoddy pinball parts and like casings and like steals their plutonium for research. And then he puts his dog in a car and goes, "Good luck."
So, we got one more casting thing from the GWW.com, and that says Yusuf, male, 11 to 14, black, supporting. Character portrayed as male. He, him, 11 to 14 years old. Character comes from an unnamed North African country. Friends with Carlos. He is also savvy and smart. So if this is real, could Carlos be Antonio Banderas? He is also savvy and smart. His education also comes from his time on the streets and not the classroom. Doesn't come from money and is mostly taking care of himself. Speaks English, but it's not his native tongue. Accent in English is okay, and so kind of very similar to the other one. So yeah.
Do you remember when Disney? There was a rumor going around a few years back about them trying to find a way to reboot The Rocketeer, and there was this idea that it would be like a team, like a team movie. It wouldn't just be a Rocketeer; it'd be the Rocketeers.
Right.
And there was like I know I thought it, and probably a million other people did. It was like that would be a great thing for like the Rocketeer pack to end up in Indiana Jones. Like I could easily see like Harrison Ford strapped to, or if you had a bunch of little kids, Indiana Jones and the Rocketeers. It's just as goofy as any other 1930s serial.
Yeah.
And you see all these little kids. I'm like, imagine little kids in rocket packs. Like they got the single engine one from the comics, because the comic book Rocketeer, it was one rocket behind you. It was like just like the 30s. It was ridiculous, like the Captain Cody style. And then when Joe Johnston redesigned it for the film, he made it look a little more believable, even though your pants don't catch. My dad couldn't get past the pants not catching on fire, by the way. Like my dad could watch The Thing. He could watch The Terminator, Back to the Future, Nightmare on Elm Street. But he couldn't get past that the Rocketeer's pants didn't just catch on fire.
It's weird. When I was a kid, I saw the Rocketeer in the theater, and I didn't like it. I wanted to like it. I just didn't like it. I watched it a few times. I watched it on video. I'm like, I just don't like this movie. And then I started to like it years later. It's weird. It's just a weird movie. It's kind of strange how it satisfies, but I don't think it was really designed very well to be the popcorn movie it was supposed to be, if that makes sense.
I suppose. I mean, when you talk about because in the early 90s, not to go off on a tangent, but on the early 90s, let's say there was some period films. I mean, you could put Last Crusade in 89 in that category. Dick Tracy would be in that category.
A League of Their Own.
League of Their Own would be right at 91, right? 91, 92.
Yeah.
And then eventually The Shadow and all that. But The Rocketeer is a way better film than Dick Tracy. Dick Tracy has fantastic production value. And
as a kid, I liked Dick Tracy better than I liked Rocketeer. But that was one of the first times where I was like, I like this movie, but I do feel this emptiness. I like this because I'm supposed to. But I feel this unsatisfied element. I don't know what it means. And it was just thought it was bad.
And I believe the female lead, well, not the lead, Madonna was the lead in Dick Tracy, but his Tess Trueheart was his girlfriend. She was the other con woman in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, right?
Yeah.
So she's amazing. And to see her play this like timid character, it was the first time as a kid I was like, she wouldn't put up with that shit. Like, like, come on. And then they had the kid, was it Jack from... was that the kid from Hook? No, that wasn't the kid from Hook. The kid in Dick Tracy?
Yeah. It was? That same kid. Yeah. He got a little taste of Hollywood with those films and was like, screw this, man, I'm out. Smart kid. Smart dude.
Smart. So he didn't stick around for that. But anyways, I just think like I was fortunate. I saw the Rocketeer. They did a minor movie premiere-ish thing in San Diego on the Midway. Right? That's that aircraft carrier down near Seaport Village. And so it was on there, and we actually saw the film on the Coronado naval base, the Bud's Naval Training Base, in their movie theater. And then we went on to the aircraft carrier for this party, and they actually had like a Rocketeer cake, like a fully sculpted Rocketeer cake, and they airbrushed the poster. They would carve into, and they gave out these posters that were the reverse, those reverse ones. Sometimes they make these one-offs where I think they were intended for like the light up poster marquees, but it's where it's both on both sides. It was like a reverse image on both sides. I don't know why, but
yeah. So when you put it in a with a lit background, it really is vibrant.
Right. It's
Like
really vibrant.
that's how authentic movie posters are that were in the theater. Like if you ever buy one and it's single sided, then that's how you know it was not for a movie theater's presentation.
Yeah, so they gave us that. I took like 15 of those, and then they had these cassettes. Because did you ever have there was a single cassette of just the Back to the Future theme song you could get. It was like so it was that, but it was the Rocketeer. So it was just a cassette. The 80s style Maxwell.
It was like the equivalent of the maxi single kind of version of it. Yeah.
And so I would play it on one side, and then you flip it over, and you can just the Rocketeer theme over and over again. So I have a real love for that film. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's one of the better. I would watch that and like Oscar back to back and kind of get the same. There's another period film, Oscar, right? Like,
yeah, I haven't seen that in years. I barely remember it now.
So, but back to Indiana Jones, I'm just shocked that nothing's come from the Rocketeer thing since then. Like that all kind of went away, like all those rumors and.
It probably just kind of got quiet. I mean, and we also didn't see Joe Johnston end up like really doing anything more with them after that too. I think he kind of went more into retirement though, for what I think, because I remember him kind of selling stuff off, like sketches and stuff for a while, which kind of like is what they start to do around the time when they're like about to boot to scoot. But Bearded Trio says, watch the video, and I'm not buying that it's Mutt. Wouldn't mind if it was, but that video didn't look like him. That's Rob. So Rob, I think Rob is has a reasoned feeling. At the same time, I have to say, like, I think that you put that dude on that motorcycle, and remember, there's already motorcycles in the 40s sequences, so it's not like the movie like needs more motorcycles.
It needs a motorcycle. Well,
yeah,
the motorcycle is what's on the toy box only overseas for the Lego release. So it's
right. Yeah, and actually, where was it? Was it on Amazon? Or no, it's like Showtime or somebody like that. Like the Showtime in demand service has all the Indiana Jones films right now. And like when you go onto like the little thing, they've totally cut Mutt off. Like he's been taken off of the little thing. I was like, is that on purpose? But then I was like, well, Short Round's not on the other one, so maybe it's not, But
I don't think the actors have to look like Don Cheadle doesn't look anything like Terrence Howard, and he replaced Rhodey for the entire series.
This is 11 years This is 11 years later.
And I think though, when you said Boyd, so today when you brought up the name again pre-show, I was like, man, I don't recognize the actor offhand. And then you were like Narcos and what was the other one?
The Predator.
The Predator. And I'm like, yeah. And then my stupid comic booky guy, I was like, Logan, because Mangold, he played the Reaver. So in the comic book X-Men, there was this whole series in the 80s that's when I found X-Men. The artist Mark Silvestri drew this whole run where they were in the outback in Australia being hunted down by these cyborg mercenaries called the Reavers.
Okay.
And I was like that name, Reavers, and there were cyborgs fighting mutants. And, if you're an 80s kid, you're watching Terminator, it's just right up your alley.
Well, that's what us Christopher Reeve fans call ourselves the Reavers.
And it's a shame they never did Cyborg Superman with Christopher Reeve. It's a real shame.
But they did that Sun guy, and that was just well worth it in part 4.
Nuclear Man with the fingernails. Nuclear Man. Nuclear Man was like that cut sequence from the Constantinople song. But Boyd played that role really well in Logan, I thought, and he has like a cagey. That's what I was saying. Like, I don't mean Nick Cage. Like, he has like he can pull off that untamed quality. Like you can't quite pin him down in a scene. Like there's a little bit of an unpredictable nature to him.
Right.
I think, which Shia has too. Right. Like if you think about qualities of an actor, he can do that. I just don't think the name Boyd Holbrook is. People don't recognize the name right now for whatever.
That's
reason.
A man name though.
Mangold,
Mangold, Harrison Ford, Holbrook. Like what? These are. I feel like my name is Jennifer right now next to these guys.
Yeah, I don't live up. I mean, Banderas. Like we are all just we're all. We're all just pale imitations of men. We're the dollar store dudes.
yeah. I'm the Dollar Tree version of that guy. Dewey Williams says pictures of Phoebe came out today, and she looks like a journalist. She's rocking a camera too. So I saw pictures yesterday. So I don't know if there's new ones that have hit since I dropped the kids off. But man, yeah. So there we go. So that's probably more confirmation that if they are in the media, at least, or some confirmation or some possibility of it anyway. I mean, like, you usually don't have characters who are like, oh, I just like taking pictures of New York for fun because I'm a tourist here. I mean, which I guess could be, but
it's a very Lucas-y thing to do, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I do, like I said, at the end of the film when he gets the camera and takes the picture at the wedding, I think that was a Lucas telegraphing moment of how do you, because you can't have Indy's son get the whip in the hat and then do more with it. They wanted to do more with it. That was the plan. That was the hope. It's just it backfired.
Yeah, I mean, had that film resonated, then I think we would be on the third Mutt Williams,
right?
Kind of film.
And I think it's a shame that it didn't, because the issues that were in that movie that made people mad probably would not have permeated into more. But here we are, and we're getting another Indiana Jones movie, and I think, I don't know. So we'll have to see. Like Bearded goes on to say, nothing is off the table. I think the current vibe is that the movie will be more down to earth, which is really funny because it's about the space race. I think that they will keep the supernatural alien tone down. Yeah, I think the alien they will keep toned down for sure, and I don't think that there's no vibes that there's anything religious to it. I don't even know if Disney would be super plussed by the idea of religion being in it. The Bearded Trio says, all I do know for certain is that they have top men on it. Top men. Yeah. No. And I'm with you there. Like, I don't think that it's going to be aliens again, personally. Like, I just think that 2 movies in a row of, like, even when they were dealing with Christianity in the earlier films, they still spaced them out. They were like, oh, here's our Ark of the Covenant. We got to do something different now. Sankara stones. Oh, everybody's mad at us. Let's go back to the well, back to the Well of Souls. And then they go back to, and then they do the Cup of Christ. And so they're like, okay. And then, so they kind of went back to it. And then for the 4th one, they're like, well, we can't do that again. So they go with the aliens, with the interdimensional beings. And
the Anunnaki.
Yeah. And I do think that your vibe is right. I do think that if they're going to go with Mangold, it's going to be more realistic and toned down. Like there is stuff I love and for like the whole warehouse scene with Indy. Like, honestly, love the first like hour of that 4th film, like, as much as I love anything else Indy. But you do have him like swinging on with the whip. It does become a little bit more superhero-y than it is in the previous installments. At the same time, it's
some of those shots were very Spider-Man like.
Yeah,
I don't know if was Dykstra involved on the 4th film, because some of like the warehouse where he's like takes a whip and goes across. There's like these wider shots off memory, guys. I haven't watched the film in a while, but I just remember feeling very Toby. Huh?
Dykstra and Lucasfilm got divorced.
Okay.
When he when they hired him to make the visual effects on Star Wars, he created a Dykstra Flex camera using their money and was like, but it's mine. And they're like, no, that's our money. That's ours. And he's like, but Battlestar Galactica, I'm doing it with the Dykstra Flex. They're like, oh, fuck you. Fuck you, Dykstra. I don't know if they ever made up.
Then he went and did Battlestar. But I know he did Spider-Man. So yeah. It's very Dykstra like those warehouse whip shots, like. So, my only gripe, I mean, I fall in the same camp. It's not great, but it's not, other than Karen Allen and not her ability to act, what they gave her, the direction in general was not my thing.
Right.
Was the other thing that was kind of like bummer was the color grading on the trailer is far better than the one in the film. Like, if you go watch the trailer for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the color grading has a really cool look to it, and it's much more flatter in the final film. Like, I don't know why that is.
I should look and see if the 4K versions that came out this last month or whatever, if they fixed that at all. Because I watched
not
it.
those.
It looked great. They all looked good. Like Raiders looks like Raiders in the theater. Like it's totally worth getting. I didn't buy the physical disc. I bought them digitally because I know I am not going to get up and put a disc in. I am going to simply watch it streamed every time. Like there are moments when I own like Labyrinth in like on the 4K disc, but I end up streaming it in HDX on my Vudu account because it's how I have it like streamed. So it just, I had to be real about it. It looks better on the disc, no doubt about it, but it's not going to get
I've had to
up.
rip every 3D film I have just because it's easier to stream it to my devices or Oculus than it is for me to plop in the disc and set it all up on the TV.
Yeah. And so Nike says hi. What's up, dude? What's up, Dale? Dale's here. Rick is here. He says the internet's best conspiracy podcast. It's all a conspiracy especially when there's so much speculation too. But Bearded Trio goes on to say there is a theory that the MJ12 deal was about exotic materials and tech in exchange for who knows what. Yeah, right. Yeah, and I'll just plug it for the 20th time. On Saturday, I'm going to do the another UFO show. So if you guys at 8 p.m. So if you guys want to come over and hang out and hear about UFO stuff and conspiracy stuff, then it's going to be good. And me and Jason, who's here, Pemberfoot 79, will be there with me. And
Jason, you have to grow your Art Bell mustache for that
right?
You gotta get the glasses, and the stash. You gotta do it.
Yeah, I'll try. No, I won't.
I know.
No. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, man. Like when it comes to where this movie is going, I think that we're starting to kind of get like I feel like what it's going to be is starting to feel more real. Yesterday we talked about how what if it's all of the stuff about the space race. It could be in the backdrop. It could be what's going on historically in the moment, but the story may not necessarily be about that. It might just be like, isn't it fun to set it, in New York in America that week? Like it could simply be that because they do go through that parade. There is the parade. There was the rumor about the parade that I also have no idea if this is true. It is probably not. But is that it? And here's why I think not, is that the rumor is that one of the astronauts is killed and then replaced with basically a copy. Something like that. I don't know if it's like a Manchurian candidate kind of idea, but the thing about it is the 3 astronauts that we have on there are real American heroes. You're not going to go and murder a real American hero and say he was replaced with a Nazi agent.
Right, like a historical dude, like they'd have.
Yeah.
Hey, imagine calling up Balls Aldrin. Hey, you mind being a Nazi? Like, what?
Yeah. Hey, excuse me, Buzz's estate. Would it be okay if we turned him into a Nazi for our movie? No.
We whiteboarded it, and it looks good to us.
Yeah, and if they had changed the names of the astronauts on the poster, I'd be like, or on the set stuff, and made them fictional characters in it, then you would have been like, oh, okay, maybe. But that's what makes me think that is mostly not true. But talking about all of this is what will bring the truth out, and that's the way it goes. Josh Stickles says, I'm down for whoever Boyd Holbrook plays in Indy. I know him from this awesome time travel movie on Netflix called Shadow of the Moon. Oh, I will watch that because I liked him in Narcos, and he does a really good job in that. And it's like, hell, everybody in Narcos does a good job. So I'm going to check that out. Ken Carlson says, so it looks like they're really going to go overboard now with the CGI and de-aging with Ford's injury. He was nowhere to be found during the parade scene, just a double with dots on face. Yeah, I will say though, stunt doubles and digital face replacement, that's not in any way unique to anything here. That's not on Star Wars. It's pretty commonplace now. What I think that the difference will be is that the close-ups that we get will probably either be shot later using plates and data collected from this filming, or they will just, I mean, still Ford may show up and do it. But yeah, I'm not completely I'm not sure that that's how it's going to go. I don't think that it's going to be a CGI insane movie based off of this. And I think that essentially when there would always be like a, can we let Ford do this? Can we not kind of stuff? And you didn't really notice it too much in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where they did stuff like that too. So I think it's completely, yeah, exactly. I mean, but that, I mean, yeah, a lot of those jungle environments and what they did in that one, I still don't like. It's weird because I go like on like, I fall in this weird line with it. Like when you watch Last Crusade, like the moments where they're like on the beach and like Indy's dad is like using his umbrella to make the birds fly up and hit the plane and stuff. Like there is some Goonies quality blue screen work in those scenes at times. That is
rear
just,
projection.
Yeah, I think it's a blue screen like composite, but it looks bad. It looks bad. And
yeah, like especially those close-ups, like when he's acting or they want to see him, right?
Yeah.
Like you can kind of see, it doesn't match up.
Yeah. I don't know if it was like because like they needed the reaction shots later and they were just dropped in later or what it is, but I always kind of felt like there was a B movie kind of stitched together feeling in a lot of the indie movies as well. So when you get down to the artificial stuff in part 4, I defend it more than not. The stuff I don't really defend is like the made up stuff, like the jungle smashers. And so I'm a little bit like, what are you doing? But trying to make toys, but and Indiana Jones toys never sell that well. So it's like, what are you doing? But I still think that that it's like not that big of a deal. But I also question like, why didn't you just film this in the jungle? Like why did you? Is it because you guys are getting older and didn't want to go outside as much? So it's a little bit strange, but
it's sticky. I don't like the sticky. It gets
yeah.
sticky. Yeah,
and
jungle gets
like
everywhere.
George Lucas could just not go. It's like George Lucas is like, you guys have a good time, have a fun time, have a fun time, Steven. But
wear some shoes.
I love the idea of asshole George Lucas. It's so funny because like you see like his like fucking gray pompadour and he's just like burning you. like that moment with at the Force Awakens premiere with Frank Marshall where he makes some comments and he's all, I'll crush you like a bug.
I'll crush you like a bug.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Pemberfoot says, gentlemen, hope you're having your day has been great. Also, whatever indie is in, I'm gonna love. Yeah, me too.
Hey,
I mean,
another hypothetical great indie crossover that's totally plausible. Indiana
right.
Jones and the Lost World.
Yeah, if I'm surprised they never went with a dinosaur one. Remember in the 90s when everything was dinosaurs, just like even before Jurassic Park hit, like we were like everything was dinosaurs. But Ken says,
for me it started with the Dinobots. So
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, no, I love the Dinobots. I showed Big to my kids this week. They weren't that impressed with it. I was surprised. Big as a child, Big was like terrifying. Like the idea that you go to this machine and make a wish and then you wake up and then like your parents don't know who you are and like you have to run out and you have to go like in the city and like your best friend does it, like all that. It's like so Twilight Zone-y. And I found the movie terrifying. I loved it, but it was still terrifying. They just didn't care. They were just like, nah, what's so scary about that? I'm like, well,
we have COVID.
Yeah, right. They're all.
I said the word. Damn it.
Right. Yeah.
I should get a big red X every time.
Well, yeah. They're like, Dad, we grew up with COVID and Trump. Well, what do we care about being big at this point? No. But yeah. So yeah, we did. Ken asked if we heard about Antonio Banderas, And it's like, yeah, we covered it in the beginning of the show, and it's like, wow, that's a big one I didn't see coming. I mean,
Indy
and it's
hires an assassin, and
yeah, no, and I'm still trying to get my head around it because like that broke right as we were about to start, and it was like, like it's very interesting, fascinating, even, and
I
I
could
know,
see him going two ways. He could play like a Sala type. I need to get something in the jungles, or you know what I mean, or even not even the jungle, like even in America. I could see him playing that kind of
yeah.
seedier type. I could also see a thing where he's literally just the guy running a college somewhere. I mean, Antonio's got really good range.
Well,
So and
I like what you suggested, that he is a South American Nazi hunter, that he's the guy who you go to for that stuff.
yeah, like if I need to get stuff, we got to go down there, and I'll show you this. And I can even see a double cross scenario too, you know,
Mhm.
or so there's a
Sure.
lot of yeah. I mean that he brings a lot to the table with the right director, or you can just end up with Spy Kids 3.
Spy Kids 3,
So,
yeah. No, and it's like, yeah, but I always give Spy Kids a pass. That project had different goals and aims. It's always like I always compare that to my friends I talked about on the show before, where you're like they would start talking about like Britney Spears or something, and it's like, you have a mohawk. Britney Spears is not trying to do the same thing as you. Like, your goals and aims with this little 3-minute song are not the same. Therefore, you are it's apples and oranges, bud. And it's like, so
I
I
meant
kind of
more of a comedy thing, not like yeah. I like the films are good for kid films, you know, and they're really excellent indie films. I think for me, the Robert Rodriguez misfire of his career is Sin City 2. You know,
yeah.
not that I'm the biggest fan of the first film. I like the visual styling, but it just felt like torture to have to watch it the second time. And I love the comics, got all the graphic novels. And I think once I got past that, wow, I'm seeing this graphic novel for the first time, then it was like, do I have to watch this again? Like, I don't know. Like, there's something I can't watch it again and again. I don't know why. I don't know
Yeah,
what it is.
to me though, those movies look pretty.
Yeah, they look pretty.
And I feel like they're ultimately like just soulless, you know what I mean?
There you go.
And yeah, so um Bearded Trio goes up. Rob from Bearded Trio goes on to say, "I'm happy that Toby Jones is in this. He's a great actor. You have to
Forget
watch
that.
Detectorist to see him at his finest, and watch a feel-good TV series that is as funny at the same." Okay, that's a good recommendation. Yeah. I'm also happy that Toby Jones is in this film, because he's going to be able to play. I mean, you could already see the role he's playing just in the photos, and he has something in his hand. And I saw something in Indy's hand in the New York scenes, and I wasn't sure if it was the same thing. And I meant to look into that, and it slipped my mind. But he has like almost looks like a clock or something, and but you can kind of see it's like a yellow in color kind of thing. And then when you see Indy, the stunt man yesterday with the dots on his face,
Yep.
he too has something in his hand that I think may be the same thing, but I'm not sure. But if we can confirm that, we would end up knowing something about the film. If that Toby Jones has that in 1944, 45, and then we have Indy with it in 69, there you go. But I do hope my number one hope for the film is that Indiana Jones tries LSD. It's 1969. Phoebe looks
And
like a foxy lady who's down to party.
then he goes into like a Big Lebowski like trippy scene with pink elephants and psychedelic, you know, and I mean, not that they did that in Big Lebowski, but you know, he'd get high and
Yeah.
he'd see Saddam Hussein and giant bowling balls and stuff. Like,
No, he's just gonna be like, he's just like, man, aliens, Christ, it's all connected, man.
he goes to Hugh Hefner's mansion, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, there was. If we want to do a little Star Wars thing here, if I could remember how to do this, see over here in the window. Okay, yeah, share that one, computer machine. Okay, that was really weird what it did. It kicked that over. Okay, so get out of there. Wait, okay, I got that full screen. Sorry, guys, but my computer went and it minimized the thing I wanted to see. There we go. Okay, here it is. Boom. I did it. I did it.
Hey.
Okay, so EA Star Wars says we won't be showing any new Star Wars games at EA Play Live on July 22nd, but all of us look forward to celebrating with you next year when we share our vision for the galaxy far, far away.
DLC.
So right? Yeah, man. I just can't I can't help but think I wasn't expecting anything in July. I feel like when you get to play something at EA Play, they've already given you trailers and stuff. We haven't even like hit that point yet, so I wasn't expecting anything. But it is both a bummer and cool at the same time that they're saying next year, yes, but that also means by next year, 1 year from now, you really shouldn't expect much. That's my
Yeah,
takeaway.
if I had to put money on it, I mean, at this point, they're losing the exclusivity of that license, right? We
Yeah,
already know Ubisoft's working on stuff. So my guess is it's probably the follow up to Fallen Order, whatever Respawn's doing, because
yeah.
EA owns Respawn, right? So I can't see them. I mean, I guess they could throw another Battlefront out there, but I just feel like they've really gone to the well too many times with that franchise recently, and it's not like the Frostbite engine has gotten any better. I mean, graphically it's fine, but it's not a diverse, as you
Yeah.
know. I want to finish by saying it's not a diverse engine for creating indoor outdoor scenes like big multiplayer worlds. It's really a first person shooter map engine. It still is. And the flying tech in Battlefront 2 was a separate company, right? Like they had to like graft that on there.
Yeah.
And so I mean, they could do another Battlefront, but it would have to be something more like the Battlefront games, I guess, like Battlefront 2, where it was like Clone Wars through the sequel trilogy in a way, or Mando stuff. I don't know, because it's. I mean, are you excited about more EA stuff? I feel like after what they did to Ragtag, that I'm like, whatever, like
So
Respawn, cool, but EA proper, I don't know.
they got greedy with Battlefront. I am unpopular opinion, but when Battlefront very first dropped, Battlefront 2, I should say, Battlefront 1 was just because we demanded it. They were like, we're going to answer the market's call. We're going to get this out now. Battlefront 2 was more of the real game. And then so Battlefront 2 comes, and the buying cards thing, I think, was obviously no one would say that wasn't a huge mistake. It was. At the same time, I kind of enjoyed an era of that game where I never bought anything, but I unlocked like I don't remember what the gun was called, but it would drop like shoot like 3 little ball grenades that like blew up. People didn't have that. You couldn't just go and decide I want that move. I got the card. I had it. I felt kind of unique for a while. And when I was like on like a team, like my friends would be like, use that, and I would use it like in hallways and stuff to like clear it. Like, so it was kind of, I kind of liked where they were going with it. I kind of liked the slow um the slow grind of it, of not everything being available day one and stuff like that. But they did do it as essentially or ostensibly a pay to play. And when they did that, they messed it all up. At the same time, if you play Battlefront 2 today and they're not developing anything more for it, but if you play it today, it's fantastic. It ended up a great Star Wars game. It's really well made. It's super fun. Frostbite does weird things with the menus. I put a different game made in the Frostbite engine, and if you like minimize the Xbox and like let it go to sleep and then go make dinner and come back to play, it plays everything in fast motion. I've played multiple Frostbite games that do that now, and it's like, so it's weird. But
Yeah, it's like the Millennium Falcon of engines at this point. Like they've
yeah,
just, like they've literally just modified it to the point where I mean, that's really what the ragtag cancellation came down to, is they didn't want to spend the money to build a custom engine for like a third person exploration game, because they spent all this money on Frostbite, and then they don't want to move to Unreal because there's a culture at EA that says, well, we spent all this money, why aren't we using it? There's just a weird corporate culture at at EA, sorry, that with their games, where they're like, we spent this money, get the most out of it. And I get that, but you're going up against, I mean, like, as much as I love Star Wars, we all love Star Wars. There are plenty of other games for people to play.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like everyone's like, I'm going to hold off my purchase for that Star Wars game. So it's like, you need to like, wow. And people expect that name Star Wars to not bring the drivel, right? To not bring the free mobile to play kind of goofy. You want to be impressed. Like when you first saw the first Battlefront screens, you're like, wow, they're using photogrammetry, you know, and it's going to be like, those jungle scenes are amazing. You put the money into it. This is the big deal. And then when it feels like it's not the case, you're getting more like the modern version of the Jedi power battles, you know, or my God, you know, I'm not going to say Yoda stories, but you remember when they were trying to do like that Windows desktop simple game stuff at LucasArts? It's like, that's not the place to do Star Wars, you know, like.
Yeah, that's where it's both. I completely understand how anybody could feel one way or the other about all of this stuff. Like my son, his Star Wars game is Fallen Order. That is like, he's 7. I know for a fact when that dude is like 25, 26 years old, he's going to want to play Fallen Order out of nostalgia. Like that's going to be his Star Wars game. It's a good game. And so I think that they got to the right place only after the market said, "Are you fucking crazy?" And then they
Bob
were like,
Iger called.
Yeah.
I mean, when the CEO of your licensor calls you to go, what the F are you doing?
Well, and what's funny is like, I'm not willing to die on a hill for this, but I had heard that that was more about the ragtag thing than it was. Yeah, that it was what was going on. It was all of it. But ragtag, that story getting pushed off when there was so much behind the scenes hinging on that story, it was going to be sort of a tent pole of the continuity. There were things being put into the comic books at the time that were going to play into it. Like, and then they were like, well, I don't think so. And then you had the Battlefront stuff going south too. And then, so yeah, it was rocky. At the same time, if we are being very, very honest with ourselves and very, very real, Star Wars games have always been loved by us, but very, very shitty. Okay, always, no, I'm not saying that there's not exceptions, but like Shadows of the Empire, love that game when it came out. Played to hell. It was buggy. It was the most buggy N64 game at the time I had played. It didn't run well. The sequels to the Jedi Outcast games, they're not that good, really. They're like, I love Super Star Wars. I love Super Empire Strikes Back, but those are weird games. Those are wild games made by like JVC or something like that, and they play weird. They're super hard today. And Racer is probably one of my favorite Star Wars games of all time. The N64 version, especially. Also, though, a weird, very strange game. Like they were never standard games. And like Jedi Power Battles and stuff like that was broken when it came out. Like I bought more broken games from LucasArts than I ever bought quality like games that worked.
I think when it comes to history of Star Wars video games, it always hinges on the cinematic experience versus the gameplay experience. So a lot of times in games, when you're developing a game, you really want to get this core gameplay loop going, something that you do, and then when you do it, you feel good, you want to do it again. Right. Whether it's Mario hitting the block and stomping on things, jumping up and down, which is why Mario's original name was called Jumpman.
Right.
And in any game, it's this gameplay loop, which I've been doing a bit of game design the last couple of years. So it's, you know, you really hinge on that. And a lot of the Star Wars games have been more about how do we take people to Star Wars and make them feel like they're there? The first game that ever did it successfully was the 1983 arcade game, which has a gameplay loop where you're the X-Wing TIE fighter going through these Vectrex looking 3D, which I have the back here. It's not on the camera.
I love that game. That's one of my favorite games of all time.
And then when you get to the Return of the Jedi, so they made an Empire Strikes Back, which was Vectrex, and then they made a Return of the Jedi pixel thing, which is this top-down isometric
speeder bikes
thing. It's not nearly as good. It's not cinematic, and it's more cinematic in that you can see things in full color and it looks like the environment's 100%, but it has no real good gameplay loop, right?
Right.
And when you get to Shadows of the Empire, which I've been wanting to bring up on some point, because I watched this, it was a year ago, I watched this, someone put together a good YouTube documentary on the history of Shadows of the Empire, talking with a lot of the original developers. I'll get you a link to it. It's definitely good. It's like an hour. But they really go into like how it was the movie without a movie.
Sure.
And like how they went around trying to figure out, they had no point of a three-dimensional world engine, like, and they built everything on PC specs. And then when the Nintendo 64 specs came and they were significantly lower, it was this giant crunch. Like, how do we fit this game into this thing? And some things stuck and some things didn't. And the one that stuck was the opening Hoth battle where you're flying around. Yeah. And I really think that if that game hadn't had that Hoth thing where you could fly around on a speeder and circle around an AT-AT, if that didn't work so well, no one would look back at that game with fond memories. Like that opening level, because even if you only play that over and over again, you could be like, this is an amazing game, which gave us Rogue Squadrons. Because in the 80s, you remember the Atari had that Empire Strikes Back game? Mm-hmm. That was fucking horrible.
I mean, the Temple of Doom game, I played a lot as a kid. Pretty horrible too. Willow in the arcade was actually kind of well done. The Nintendo one, I both loved it, and in the era of Legend of Zelda was like, what is this? At the same time, like it didn't like come together. Maniac Mansion, fucking stellar.
Maniac Mansion. I mean, Ron Gilbert, phenomenal writer at LucasArts and game designer.
Yeah.
Monkey Island, which I really think Disney owes them money for. I mean, not anymore because they own them. But if you go watch the Pirates of the Caribbean and Monkey Island, I mean, it's...
Did you know that Pirates of the Caribbean was started as being a Monkey Island movie?
For real? Because
and remember how I was talking about how they told Natalie Portman we could just get Keira Knightley if you want. Yeah. So Rick McCallum is the one who suggested both of the leads, Orlando Bloom, who they had looked at to be Anakin, and Keira Knightley, who they had worked with in the Star Wars prequel. And he suggested both of them. And the movie, as the development went on, just became Pirates of the Caribbean movie. They ended up switching it over and not doing the Monkey Island story. And so it just became something that Disney just moved it over. I guess just moved it over to their own property. And it makes
more sense because the writers, there were the two writers who came. So the first script was the guy who did was it Stuart Little? Right. And then not Shyamalan, the director, but this guy wrote the script.
Right.
So which one was it? To the two guys added the spiritual element, or the other guy added the spiritual? One of them added the ghost pirate element to it.
Okay.
And when they explained how that happened, because originally it was just a pirate movie, and then they add the ghost pirate element. There's never a real good explanation for how that happened. Because I mean, look, I'm like pirate movie. I love Curse of the Monkey Island in the Monkey Island games. But that's the only place I've ever seen ghost pirates running around causing havoc. It was always pirates are pirates. You don't put ghosts and ghosts. Even in the Pirates of the Caribbean, there's a skeleton on the wall, but it's not the Haunted Mansion. The Haunted Mansion is where the ghosts are.
Yeah.
And so it's like I've never heard one good explanation. And when you said that, I'm like, because they're dodging it.
Right.
We were thinking of a Monkey Island movie. We're not going to do it. Undead pirate. LeChuck is the undead pirate you fight. We need an undead pirate, right?
Right.
I mean, and that is the only way it logically makes. I mean, sometimes you get a eureka moment where there's no logical through line. It's rare though. Like there's got to be an impetus for why would they pay another writer to come in and add this thing did he just go, hey man, Ghost Pirates? You know, I've been playing a Monkey Island game
Two
5
words.
years ago.
2 words, bro. Ghost Pirates.
The Ghost Dog? Yeah, we got Ghost Dog, and we're bringing him in as a pirate. Like, so, it's what I was thinking. Borgellet. So, yeah, but the Star Wars games, I think, work their best when they have a cinematic element to them.
Oh, for sure.
They're at their peak when they're able to combine that with the gameplay loop. So Racer has a gameplay loop. I think the mistake the Star Wars games make is when they try to treat them like canon, because they're games. And I go back to the 90s, the Mortal Kombat guys were originally going to make, that was originally going to be, well, it was 2 things. One, it was a Van Damme game.
Yeah,
that's true. But it was also going to be a Star Wars fighting game using photographical capture. And Midway was like, why would we pay for a license when we can just make our own thing? Don't do that. Because they did the math, right? We would lose, if it's successful, we're going to lose X amount of dollars on that. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, I wanted that in the 90s. I wasn't a big Mortal Kombat guy, but I'm like, wow, digitized 2D fighter, Star Wars, if it's not serious. Like, you just have Yoda fight, Darth Vader. And at the time, when you bring that up to like Lucas people in interviews, they go, Yoda wouldn't be able to fight. That's why Yoda wasn't in that 3D fighter on the PlayStation 1, the Masters of Terraskasi.
Terraskasi, yeah.
Terraskasi, yeah, with Arden Lin. And they're like, well, it wouldn't work.
See, I love that game. Me and Randy, Randy had a PlayStation. We went out first day it came out. We pre-ordered that actually, and picked it up, and we played it to death. But the game was awful. In reality, we love Star Wars, so we had fun playing Star Wars games. But it was not like it wasn't good. Even like, and those games like Rebel Assault and that kind of stuff. Games were like very cool, but were they good games?
No gameplay loop.
They were clunky and they were weird. Yeah. And like Bearded Trio says, X-Wing, TIE Fighter, KOTOR, Dark Forces, Jedi Knight, all fantastic games. We've been treated to some awesome games over the decades. Oh, and the original Star Wars arcade, yeah. And see, and like number one, like the first 2 of those, I was not rich enough to be able to play because they came out before I could have a computer. Or Dark Forces, I didn't get to experience those originally. So by the time I got to play them, I was like, oh, these are okay. And that last what's it called? I have it right
there if you see in the studio.
Oh, nice.
Like, I got it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I keep it in the studio.
What do you call it? What's that one? The Rogue Squadron, not Rogue Squadron, the X-Wing game that just came out in VR. Fantastic game.
Squadrons.
Star Wars Squadrons. Fantastic game. I played it to a death. Love it. It is so good.
And they didn't give him a budget. That's what's crazy about it.
Didn't need any money.
Game. And there's no recreation battles because there's no. My friend was like, "You can't fight the Death Star." I'm like, they didn't give him the money.
Yeah.
Like I mean, right now, if they, like, maybe a year from now, they go, "Here's Squadrons 2."
Maybe when Rogue Squadron, the movie comes out, there'll be a tie-in. That's my hope.
I would love. I mean, if you had the depth of gameplay, recreation, and as well as new content, but cinematic historical Star Wars battles in VR that I could fly around and actually go to Death Star 2 battle, Death Star 1 battle, even pod racing. I have a friend who develops in VR and on Unreal. He did all the Skydance stuff, like this a lot of the Skydance VR experiences and stuff, and he did the Spider-Man one too. But I was telling him about, and I was like, man, dude, let's make a pod racing demo in VR. He's like, you'll throw up. I'm like, but like, that would be like really pod racing. Like, you'd probably,
there's
when you go that fast.
On the Oculus store, there is a game meant to test if you will vomit or not. And it's the Death Star. And
really?
It's an X. Yeah, I did it. I flew it like crazy. I didn't feel sick whatsoever. Yeah, it was like if you feel nausea, please send us the data about it. It was like some
when the DK2,
some college do it.
When the DK2 came out, the Oculus DK2, which was one of their original prototypes in 2015, I want to say, it was $500.
Yeah,
I bought it, and there was this demo that a fan made where you could do a bit of the Death Star battle, right?
I think it's the guy thing.
That guy who built that, they hired to do the VR for Squadrons. Same guy.
Okay. Yeah,
Same dude.
it's um my point, I guess, when I opened this up, and I knew when I said everybody was going to be like Rob's like, here's all the games I love.
Now I'm triggered.
Yeah, no, and I'm totally with you. But like I think if we were to go and we were to list out every game they ever made, and we were to like give it a realistic like grade, the crap
it's in the 60
far
to
outweighs.
70% range. It's in the 60 to 70% range overall. Yeah,
And
but they're
I
not
think you're being,
so.
I think you're being nice. I think you're probably being nice. Yeah, but I'm just gonna say wacky races. Come on, no. But or what was that game?
Bombad Racing.
Bombad races.
Yes.
Or Bombad Racing. Yeah.
Look,
no.
if you're drinking in college, that's a game to play.
Sure. Oh yeah. No. I was playing it last night with the bottle of Jaeger. No.
Jaeger.
Yeah. No. It's. So I guess what I'm getting at is that it's always been rocky. It's always been not so straightforward and easy or even pleasant. And that's one reason why LucasArts, unfortunately, doesn't exist today. So to go out and then to hope that EA is going to be able to get it together and make it work is like they should have been able to. They should have been way more. I don't know professionals the word because that would imply that they weren't professional before. That's not what I mean to say. But they should be a AAA game developer who does not make mistakes. And they just continually do because it's the way it's going to be there. So
well, I also felt
I love both of those all three games came out good from them. I'm trying to stick up for them while being realistic about my evaluation of them.
Well, you're being fair. When Star Wars games worked, I think they work so well that you forget all the ones that don't, right? Like Yoda stories, that stuff didn't work. The Obi-Wan game, remember how big the Obi-Wan game was supposed to be?
Yeah.
And it was has this 3-dimensional lightsaber movement with the mouse, and none of that worked. It was the big Xbox exclusive, and that didn't happen.
And then when Clone Wars was coming out for the Wii, Wii was doing Wii Motion Plus, kept it a secret. Nintendo kept it a secret from Lucasfilm, who developed their whole Star Wars game. And then it comes out, and then Wii Motion Plus pretty much drops about the same quarter or the same time. And they're just like, oh, screw you, man. And that ended that. That's one of the things that messed up LucasArts as well, from what I understand.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, having one-to-one lightsaber controls, or even it was never going to be one-to-one with Wii Motion Plus, but better than whatever the Wii shipped with. Better than Waggle. Better than Waggle controls. I forgot about that. I'll say this. I was at the E3 in 2010 or 11, which one, I can't remember which one it was, but it was when the Kinect was first being demoed. Yeah. And they had that dancing game. It was a bunch of mini games, and the Rancor was fun, but they had the dancing, which is the one they were pushing.
I was at that one too. That was the one where they were showing the R2 Xbox, right?
Yeah, it was weird because they had this booth that was like a circle, and you could see it had this glass. You could watch everyone, and they would all the editors would go through each room and play a different controlled section of the game, and on the outside we could all sit around and watch them. Yeah, which is, I don't know, it's awkward. Demos are awkward too, and they felt they were on display, and the demos themselves. When you get to Lando and Han Solo doing real, staying alive, like scenarios, 70s staying alive. It's funny to watch. It's not funny to be the guy everyone's watching doing it.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like, no one was like, sign me up. Can't wait to try. It was just a lot of like, oh.
And I would say that version of Lucasfilm probably informs Star Wars Detours.
Yeah.
It shows you where their head was at, Justin, really quickly before I forget, I don't want to skip this one. Pember Futsal can't help but tie the Apollo stuff with real life former Nazi scientist Werner von Braun, possibly tying it into a real world history with what happened to some Nazis after the war. And I think that's kind of where they're going with it too.
That's why I dropped his name, because he in Operation Paperclip and the whole thing.
Yeah.
If they go there, I mean. Look, remember the movie The Explorers? River Phoenix dropped the Werner von Braun.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
I grew up with that movie. I was wanting to get a spaceship and fly over to the girl's house. I'd like to be like, hey,
Thunder Road.
Justin Westwood says, imagine an alternate universe when Ragtag and Collins 9 came out in the same year. Yeah, I gotta say though, I really don't think that where Collins' movie was going, if that movie was made, I don't think it was going to kick ass. I think it was going to be another version of something that was The Bearded Trio says, I feel like, or I hope to think, that EA have have had a ticking off above the way that they've treated Star Wars, and they are being extra cautious on their Star Wars releases. This may be a good thing that they are taking their time. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's like I don't know if it's correct attribution, but I always hear that Miyamoto said something like release a game late, you have a good game forever, release an early game early, or an unfinished game early.
Yeah,
And
no
it's
one
bad
remembers a
forever, something
game
like
if it's
that.
late.
Is that what it is?
They remember a game
something
if
like
it's
that.
bad.
Yeah, I just totally butchered that because somebody just texted me about Indiana Jones that I don't know if it's something I could read on the air or not.
Well,
So
just to forget, before I forget about the Explorers, also the first time Star Killers dropped in a movie. When they go to the drive-in, the movie they're watching is Star Killer, and it's Ricardo, the doctor from Voyager, the holographic doctor,
right.
plays that character. But that is Star Killer. Joe Dante and them, like, they drop that in there, you know, like it's an intentional.
Yeah.
So if you want to see Star Killer, it's the original.
So hey, what's up, Mr. Hamilton? Dale for Santa. Hey, Santa's on a lawnmower right now, which is both really hilarious to me because I know he's not in a Santa costume, but I like to imagine that he is, and that like his front yard. I like to imagine his front yard looks like Pee-wee's with like the snowman stuff out like in the middle of July, and his neighbors are like, "Hey, can you put that stuff away?" And he's just like, "I don't hear you," while he drives around. So I am Rubber Yard.
I am shocked with all like the Ernest and Pee Wee kind of movies. I mean, we know why Pee Wee didn't get another movie in the 90s, but why there hasn't been a Pee Wee's like Santa movie. I mean, I have the Pee Wee Christmas special, but I could easily see a Santa's Workshop like Pee Wee's house from the first film, where
right,
like it kicks off and candy canes get dropped in the thing, and the reindeer get fed, and Santa's out in the front with. I imagine a shot where Star Wars Santa has like that GoPro camera on in front of his face while he's mowing, and it's just going around the lawn. You just see the lawnmower going from left to right.
That Netflix Pee Wee movie just did not work.
No,
unfortunately, it sucked. I really wanted to see him do more, and I really wanted to see more from it. And I'm afraid that stalled out. You know, what does Josh say? Josh says, when I was a kid, I loved the Phantom Menace, Revenge of the Sith games for PS1 and PS2. Yeah, I remember being in college and when I was doing my undergrad, because not grad school, undergrad, and Revenge of the Sith came out, and the fighting game quality of it, that was terrible, but it was so fun to play with your friends who were excited for a new Star Wars movie. Like you're like basically you've always wanted to see Anakin and Obi-Wan fight, and then now you're getting just to turn that into a mini fighting game, you know, associated with it. And we probably played that more than we played the actual story. We played the whole game, but I think the fighting game part of it was really big with us. And Terrace Kasi was total shit, but we played that to hell. And somebody has made a game. I can't remember what it's called, but they used it doing the Unity engine, which you see all those VR games made with today, all those like low rent VR games. But they made a fighting game, and you could watch it, footage of it on YouTube. And they took like Battlefront models, and they bought like pre-made animations, and they made a fighting game using all the Star Wars characters, and it looks pretty rad.
I'll check it out.
Yeah,
they don't have support for it now with Unreal 5, but they are developing. It's not a mobile, but it's a type of processor that VR would be able to use. So given that Unreal 5 is very scalable, that you can get a lot out of it without a lot of effort, that once that happens, you're gonna probably see a lot of VR games look a lot better because of that. Which is what we've all been looking forward to. I'll say this about Revenge of the Sith. There was a Game Boy Advance game, because I'm a hand-drawn art lover. There's a 2D like brawler game that's really quite good. The pixel work on that is good. But when in 2006, when I'm playing it, you know, and I'm like 24, 25, even in college, like I just was at the tail end of college. They're like, you're playing that old game? I'm like, yeah, pixels are dead. You know, I'm like, all right, well, it's a fucking wonderful game. Like it's really well put together, you know? So I thought that was an underrated game of that era.
Yeah, I wish they would put out the pod racing game from the arcade. I wish that they would like port that over and like let us play it, because it was such a good fun game too.
Well, I believe VR is the best way to recreate arcades.
Same.
So like, because you could just recreate the whole cabinet, and then with the controllers grab the thing and play it. You know what I mean? That you
yeah,
recreate the whole.
I have an emulator that is an arcade, and you're able to like load up the ROMs into those fake cabinets, and you just walk up and you can just play them. And
but no one's made the official thing of that. The closest is that new. Did you get the Star Wars Pinball VR with the Mando tables like that? And you have like a game room, which is better. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It's that VR pinball game is fun. I mean, honestly, all of the VR games that have come out on Oculus have been fairly well done. Even the Galaxy's Edge game is a little more ambitious and a little like you kind of finish it and you're like, that was it already. But at the same time, it's pretty excellent. I at least I dig it anyways. I was considering trying to see if I could use the app for the Oculus into this thing here, and one of these days come on to here using the VR chat version and like, hey, I'm Baby Yoda. Oh, look how stupid this is. You have to talk to me, Rob, and I'm Baby Yoda. What are you gonna do?
Oh, you Minch, you know.
Welcome to the Minch movie. You know?
Making Minch Wars. I feel, like, how Lucas really pushed the prequel trilogy to get digital cinema going.
Yeah.
I believe that if he was that age now, that he'd be in the VR film or in the VR experience area more than streaming TV or anything else. I really feel.
Yeah. What was that? What was that Star Wars television show where you see like landscapes? Biomes.
Yeah.
I think George Lucas would have done that. Star Wars Biomes, and it would have been VR. And he wanted to do like that anthropological documentary on Wookiees was like one weird random idea he had. And like he wanted to do like a Jane Goodall kind of thing and all that kind of stuff that would probably narrated by David Attenborough or something. And he wanted to, and like if they did that today in VR, it would be just brilliant. It would just be so fun. And it would be such a way of sort of making Star Wars educational, and you could maybe link it over to educational things like, oh, when we were pulling from this idea, we were pulling from this other concept in the real world, or you know what I mean, and like or this stuff exists on Earth like this, and if there was ways of making it both, I think that's what Lucas would have done, and it would have.
Yeah, it feels in a way what Cameron kind of is doing with Avatar right now, where there's a little bit of the biology. Do
you think anybody's going to care about Avatar when
people will care? Well, here's the thing, right? Like, I'm a huge fan of James Cameron. So, like, I think what he's doing technologically with the films is the kind of stuff Lucas used to do with pushing technology.
Right.
And I'm really fascinated by the writer's room he had for the better part of 4 or 5 years on those films. It's not him just writing it. He put together a writer's room of 3 or 4 different screenwriters, and they really plotted out the whole thing. And then he broke the movies up over who had the best grasp of each material.
Yeah.
Now, to say will the American public, will anyone care? Everyone says they don't care about something until it's something that they care about. Right. I know that sounds like a dumb thing, but to say, or an obvious thing to say, but if we get past the pandy and there's a truly 3-dimensional cinematic experience out there to go be had, and it's truly, wow, what is this giant... I mean, the films are big, they're not small little films, and you'll go see it. I just think that the negative about that film was when Matt Damon didn't take the role and he went with the unknown, and the unknown, it's all right. I'll say that Sam Worthington definitely feels like a typical military dude, doesn't feel like an actor, feels like a guy who was dropped in there and everyone else acts around him. But I just, when people say, who cares? I'm like, these are people who are lining up to see Fast and the Furious 9, so I don't really give a shit about
Good
you know
point.
what I mean? Like
Yeah,
for real, you literally got Vin Diesel driving in space, but you want to fucking talk shit about this stuff where they're really trying? Okay, you know,
no,
let it go.
I'm with you. Like I hate when they're like when like somebody drops like or like a studio drops like a trailer and then they're like, nobody asked for this. It's like
Yeah, and at the end of the day,
nobody knows what they want until it's put before them and they try it.
and at the end of the day, that is literally Disney's job. It's to get people interested, you know, and it's Cameron to make a great film. I'm interested. If I'm the only one in the theater watching it, so be it. But I was also the only one in the theater watching Austin Powers when that shit came out.
Right.
I mean, you know, like everyone was watching Romy and Michelle's high school reunion, one theater over. Like I'll never forget that, you know. So like, fine, I don't care, you know. I want it to do well, but they're making 3 films whether it does well or not. So Disney will, they're not, you know, and they're going to put it in. But to get to the other point, Cameron, that biome thing, like that's what he's doing. And I feel like, yeah, I think Lucas would be doing things like that in VR, you know, like right now. If you weren't, you know, 80 something years old. And got kids, you know, like
80 years old with a 3-year-old or whatever he is.
Right.
Yeah, no, and I mean, yeah, he would be directing his movies in VR. It would be, I mean, and that's one of the things that I'm like, man, when I think about Lucas and the prequels and how he was so into pushing pre-viz and making that work, like imagine how much better Lucas could have directed the prequels in VR. And I don't even mean if they were VR movies. I just mean using like Rian Johnson was able to use, and so did Edwards.
The first time I saw this version of VR, the head tracking where you can move in and out and it moves with you, was in the extended edition Lord of the Rings, the first one, the Fellowship, when they're in the cave troll sequence. That's exactly what they did. So I'm sitting at my table. I'll never forget. I'm sitting at my table working, and I had the DVD on to my right, and Peter Jackson goes, yeah, we have this thing and it's in virtual reality and we can go in, and we put it on they had the camera on like a stick, and he's got the headset on, and he could go in here and do the Steadicam shots and move around the volume. They didn't use the term volume, but and you look at it like it's there. In 2001, moving a 3-dimensional camera with the VR, it's there. I don't know, maybe that was one of the things that Lucasfilm did not take over from Weta, right, in a way. Like maybe it was a technique they didn't utilize later. But I remember looking at that going, that's the future. Like I just know, like, you know, when you see the future, you can just, sometimes you see something, you're like, yeah, that's it. You know, if I had to put my mullahs down on that one, that's the one. But I didn't see it again until the making of Avatar, and he was like, here, we're shooting around the mountains of Pandora, and it's like an empty blue room, and he's just moving around the room with the camera, and he's going over here, but in there you could see in the volume where things were. So.
No, and right now, like the Avatar production and Mando it's very incestuous. Like it's a lot of the same people are coming through both things, and those productions talk to each other. When I'm over there in the area, like I know where everybody goes to hang, and it's the same. There's a bit of camaraderie there, and there's even like been times when I think I've gotten some casting. I've been close to accidentally revealing cast members from Avatar that I thought were on Star Wars because it's so the same spaces and everything.
Right.
Yeah. So it's definitely I love VR, by the way, if in case anybody can't tell by now. Like VR is so good. It's I'm gonna say I feel like it's about 90% there right now. I feel like the next iterations that are coming of VR are going to be when it really, like, I hope it survives and makes it to
it hasn't had its
iteration.
real Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah.
So like Super Mario Brothers was still an arcade game that you could play at home, right? And Beat Saber is like still an arcade game like experience based around the limitations of the headset, but it doesn't have its Mario Brothers 3, right? Like grand adventure,
like,
right? The grand adventure game,
and you have to play this. Like you guys have to play this game. Like that hasn't happened yet. It's there's a lot of good stuff. lot of cheap stuff too, like a lot of trash. That's what sucks about it right now, is that there's so much like shovelware, as they call it, kind of
Like
stuff.
the original Atari or even the original NES, you know,
or
you ever
even the
get,
Wii. The Wii, a lot of it
oh, the
feels like
Wii
Wii
was
games.
the worst.
Yeah,
That was the worst since the Atari. Like I
Yeah.
remember just being so into it, and then 2 years later, you go to a store and it's just like casino. My friend, you know, at the time I was really big into Hell's Kitchen, and he's like, "I know you love Hell's Kitchen. I got you the Hell's Kitchen Wii game." And I put it in, and it's just Flash, like almost like, remember that Christmas Elves game you used to get in the email where you like throw snowballs at it? It was just a stupid Flash game where you're making. I'm like, this is. I just took the shit back. I was like, I appreciate it, but well, how much credit can it? You can get $10. Fine, just get it. So it's not good.
Yeah, no, and that's the good thing
But
about if you get an Oculus Quest 2 and you buy a game and you play it for a few hours or under 2 hours, and you know you hate it, they're pretty good about giving you the money back. If you're like, this is junk and I don't want it, they're pretty good about that. And
I'll say this about the Wii though: the Wii
Yeah.
is a VR system without VR.
Yeah,
Like you could see them
No, it
trying
is.
to do the motion controls. There was a guy who modded the Wii to do eye tracking around 2007, right? Early 2007 or 2006, right after it came out. And so he set it up where he put a little dot on his TV, and then when you move this way, the game would go opposite. So it gave this three-dimensional look, and he had motion controls. That guy got hired by Oculus later on to develop the one that we have now.
Yeah.
So you could see the Wii's trying to do three-dimensional head tracking and all these controls that our Oculus can do, but it doesn't do it.
Yeah. It has a ways to go still. But yeah, and I will say though, if you are a Star Wars fan into gaming who's like, should I get an Oculus Quest 2? The 3 Vader Immortals, pretty rad. The Galaxy's
rad.
the Galaxy's Edge game, pretty fun. Not a great game, but in no way bad. It's pretty good. And then the Star Wars pinball game. If you like Star Wars pinball, if those 3 things if that all sounds appealing, then I highly recommend you get yourself an Oculus Quest 2 for those games alone, as a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, and 2 things about that. One, you don't realize how tall Vader is until he gets right in your face the first time.
Yeah.
This guy is huge. You know, it is a different experience.
I know, and I realized I would be killed in 1 minute in Star Wars because I had to push the buttons on. I'm like pushing the buttons on his chest when it gets all up in my face. I'm not scared.
I mean, one day they'll recreate that hallway sequence from Rogue One in VR, and you'll really understand what they're screaming about. You know?
Yeah.
And then 2, if you're like, I don't like pinball, understand that VR pinball is so much cooler than real world pinball because they can do effects in 3D. Like they can do explosions and little characters flying around, and spaceships can fly around while you're playing pinball. It's really quite amazing.
And you feel like you're really playing pinball in a lot of ways, as much as you can without actually playing pinball. And you're not feeling like, oh, well, there went 50 cents because I suck, or there went $1 because I suck. So
$1 for pinball these days too, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not cheap.
And by the way, the best pinball of all time, and I will not hear anybody else's opinion on this, is the Indiana Jones one where you can rotate the Well of Souls. That Indiana Jones pinball machine, so good. Like, I wish they would put that out in VR as a bonus table in there, or just make it Indiana Jones pinball games, because it is the best. Like, by far. But
I'm not going to argue with that. That is actually, I've played it once and I know what you're talking about. That's
like,
a very good cabinet.
Yeah, I love it enough that like I will like look for it online sometimes, and when I find one, I'll go drive out and play it, and then find that it's broken in some way and be very disappointed wherever I drove out to play it at. But I need to buy it someday.
All of their arcade and pinball things should be things you can buy in that app historically. And I was even like, you know what would be freaking awesome is if they had a claw machine in there. And then when you play the claw machine, in the claw machine are the original Kenner figures. Like you could go in there and try to, you know, and you could like, and if you play the games, you can get tickets and like buy tokens, and then you can go do the thing, and then you can take those figures and put them on your shelf and collect all the little figures in VR. So, you know, like there's so many opportunities. And believe, anytime I meet a VR developer, I pester the hell out of them, and they just give me the shut up. It's just work. You're just creating work.
You're just making work for me.
Yeah, you know,
Bearded Trio is left. So thanks for coming by, dude. But they make a a universal table set of pinball ones in VR, and it's like E.T. and Back to the Future and Jaws. Don't buy it.
Yeah, I bought that. They don't have the music.
It doesn't have the music, and it doesn't feel like, it feels just like what, it doesn't feel right. And they don't ever really use the real voices, the voice work, so it feels even worse. And
the music is an unforgivable sin of those tables.
It makes it, yeah, it just does not work. And I got my money back on those ones. It's funny, I actually bought that, got my money back, and then they announced Star Wars Pinball VR, and I was like, okay, thank you. And I was like, they have to put the Star Wars music in that one.
Right, could you imagine if they didn't?
Dun, 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 like, no, that doesn't work.
You see it whenever like you get like a commercial for something. Like I was watching Price is Right reruns from the 80s, and because I got nothing else to do, and they played like it was a commercial for a Star Wars commemorative plate or something, but they didn't have the license for the music, so it was like some generic dun 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 dun. I'm like, that's not Star Wars. Yeah, it happens.
Mark says, you saw hilariously earlier the Hasbro Star Wars brand manager accidentally revealed her latest HasLab project, Black Series Scale Rancor. He tried to walk it back but couldn't. No, I didn't see that. That's pretty.
Poor guy.
I hope he's not in trouble. If he's not in trouble, it's hilarious. If he's not fired, it's hilarious.
I did jump in. I don't spend money on expensive toys because, as you know, you get older, you're like, this just stuff sitting there. But I did get the Mando ship HasLab. I had to throw in, and it's grossly overpriced. But I'm a big ship guy, and when I was a kid, like if the X-Wing was my jam. The TIE Interceptor was my second favorite ship. Just that look of it, the triangular wings, and I love the Pod Racer, the Naboo, the yellow one. I don't know, the yellow Starfighter is something that I really enjoy the design of. I think it's super iconic.
I had a scoop on that I know is true. And also with that same scoop, I dropped that Slave 1 was going to be in Mando Season 2, and it was. And it was that that ship was coming for Mando Season 3. Question is, was that a game of crossed wires at that moment in time, and that ship is going to be in the Book of Boba Fett?
I was going to say Avatar?
No. Or did they make the Naboo Starfighter for Mando Season 3, and they just had to put it in a case in a box somewhere, and it's just waiting to be used until they could finally get to filming on it? Because everything, kind of went weird there and sideways, and so.
Well, it's one of the last ships. Back. It's one of the last ships designed by hand. They drew. Doug Chang and them. He drew everything on paper and painted them traditionally, and the shapes are different. By the time they integrated digital artwork into Episode 2, and then by Episode 3, it's all digital. And so the difference is you arrive at much different shapes. Matter of fact, what you generally do these days with this sort of design is they arrive at silhouettes. And so they take these silhouettes and then they fill them with, they kit bash them with different textures and photographs and sort of create a design out of it. And it's why ship design looks so different now in science fiction films compared to before, where they would draw something or get a model and start off with the basic Millennium Falcon shape and then put stuff on it. But you arrive at different shapes depending on how you create it. The one that I think is the most egregious example of this silhouette technique, which I draw with silhouettes, so I'm not knocking it, but is Star Trek 2008. The Romulan ship is just a silhouette. So you can see the Enterprise-like ship, which has its roots in the 60s where they drew, right? And they took physical models and they arrived at certain shapes. And then you see the silhouette technique literally fighting one another. And so as an artist, like I just was sitting there going, this is an interesting battle that is not aware. I'm the only one here thinking of this, but it does exist. And so they relied on like bug shapes, especially with Episode 3. They're like pulling from insects and different, silhouette-ish techniques. I don't know. I still think Star Wars is at its best when you start with some of the techniques they used, and then you build it out with the technology that we have today. That's why on the new movies they have that, that model set that they have at ILM now, where they've just got every model kit that ever existed in the 70s and the 80s that was ever used. Yeah. And they recreated every piece at ILM so you could, so everyone could use the same pieces and then stick the stuff onto base shapes, which is
Right.
why the ships and the designs look so. I mean, they're leaning too much into the old trilogy in a sense, but they fit, right? But I
Yeah,
just love that
and
Naboo starfighter. I
yeah,
do.
and I always wanted to see it get undesigned. Like I want to see like the panels falling off of one eventually, like because they up designed the Y wing in the Clone Wars to become the Naboo starfighter version of a Y wing, and then when we get to the Y wings in A New Hope, all the panels have fallen off, and you could see how it was made in an artisan era, and now it's just what it is. And I'm curious to see what does that ship become by 25 years after Return of the Jedi, like or did they keep their, does this one still look good, is the one that we're going to see from a flashback, because if it is, then it's
Right.
going to be perfect.
It's all
So
beat down.
oh
It looks like the
Dewey
Pinto.
Dewey just sent a warning to us, and that's don't start beef with Fast Family.
I didn't start beef. I just said, don't tell me you're not interested in a cinematic adventure, against corporations and a native planet with giant biomes that goes, and floating mountains and dragons. But you're not interested
There
in that.
you
But
go.
You're interested in the family.
You're starting beef again with the Fast Family.
I can't go on the Schmodown until I work it out. I'll put that down.
Dell says he couldn't hold back. He's probably thinking, "Go ahead and fire me." Rick Jones says that scale Rancor is too big. I'm out of toy space, man.
It's a giant toy space. I told you I got a spot right in my closet for that Mando ship, but that's it. I'm tapped. I can't like any other ships.
No, I respect you guys getting crazy with that stuff, but that's where I wanted that skiff. I think I truly wanted the skiff,
the Jabba skiff, right?
Yeah, and I had to be like, you know what? Some dreams were never meant to come true. That was my. I was like, I do want it. It is badass, but there's just like, that's like me getting another kid. I'm like, no, there's no room. There's no room.
not for 18 years.
No.
And even then, now this economy, not in this economy, like to quote,
right? Yeah, right.
Not on this economy.
18 years.
With these benefits.
I expect my kids probably to live with me till they're like 30, 40 years old, probably.
Hey, if y'all get along, I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, truly. No, it's a different world. But
yeah,
Joel says everyone is pissed they blew up the Razor Crest after shelling out $500 for the cell barge. Yeah, I mean that's the I could see like the Razor Crest thing on that. Like I could see how that would make some people mad. At the same time, the cell barge also got blown up. So
to be fair, they've blown up the Enterprise in how many Star Trek films? Like almost every one of them. It gets the first one didn't get destroyed, and the second one, and that's about it. Like,
yeah, well, he's gonna need a new ship too, and I know that. Like, yeah, Dell's like, I'm not mad. He's gonna have to get a new ship. So when he gets a new ship eventually, like, what's it gonna be? Is he going to
the Naboo fighter?
Is he if he's by himself? No, but he's gonna have to if he's still bounty hunting. He's gonna have to have some kind of like ship to hold people in. Maybe he'll just buy another one. Maybe
the Clone Wars transport.
Yeah, or right? Yeah. But or maybe he'll just get another one. It'll have a different paint job, and that's how they'll like keep it going. Like
it's got two toilets.
I mean, if it works. I mean, that one did have a carbon freezing chamber in it though. But
I have a question about the Razor Crest. Can the Minch, can the little Grogu fit in the toilet, or does he have to like Does he know?
It's gross. He climbs in and then just puts his little butt up to like the actual toilet hole, just right there. It's like a toilet within a toilet for him. It's disgusting.
It's like Ghoulies, right? Like
it is. I showed that. I watched that the other day too. I showed that to my daughter loves horror films, and there wasn't too much I had to fast forward on that one, but it was like, what a weird movie.
Weird.
Yeah, it was so strange. And then my kids also like Child's Play. They like Chucky. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll watch Chucky. And we were watching, there's this dude on YouTube named Minty who does like 10 things you probably didn't know about Child's Play or whatever. And we watched that one last night, and it didn't talk about My Buddy. And so I ended up, remember My Buddy?
Yeah, My Buddy. Yeah. And
it's
Kid
like,
Sister.
Yeah, and Kid Sister. It was completely like the whole idea of that movie where it was riffing on what if My Buddy came to life? These commercials
Cabbage
are
Patch Dolls before that, but
but like his outfit is the same as the My Buddy dude. And like, so I ended up like showing my kids. Oh, this goes down on, I'm sorry, I'm going down a rabbit hole now, but we end up watching that, and then so I show them some ads for it, and we end up seeing like ads you wouldn't see today. And I don't know if you can see this, but it's a Stevie Wonder. I believe it's real.
Yeah, he's playing a game.
It's Stevie Wonder, and it says, "If I could play video games, you bet it would be Atari."
I believe it's real. Like,
I looked it up, and I think it appears to be real.
Stevie was capitalizing on a lot of that stuff. Remember at the time in the 80s, it was a big, if Stevie Wonder could see, was like a constant. I think because Eddie Murphy was doing it on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
I think there was something there, but yeah, it was a constant thing with that. What was I going to say about the, darn it, lost my train of thought. I had a thought, Shmee. Smee. It's gone, you know?
Yeah, no, I anyways, just I guess we hit the 2 hour mark. We're starting to get a little bit loopy here because that's what happens then. So I think we'll close this one down for today. But what a day! Bunch of Indiana Jones news, probably a bunch of potentially real big Indiana Jones revelations if it was all true and it all ends up going into where it should. And surprisingly,
until Mangold rages on Twitter at us, you know, this is not
Mangold's
true.
Gonna be
He's
like,
not Mutt, you know.
Yeah, Mangold's gonna be so mad. He's like, I hate Mutt. Mutt sucks.
Not my Mutt, you know.
Mangold make Wolverine. Mangold no like you. I'm like, oh shit, Mangold. No. I don't know who he got into the fight with, by the way, like whoever that was, and like whatever the deal with that was. Like I don't know anything about that stuff. So
I love his movies.
But I think like we should, what we say on our shows like this should just be like exactly the same kind of thing. It's like, would you say it to Mangold's face? That's how,
yeah.
that's how I try and be. We will go off on tangent jokes that we probably wouldn't make in front of people's faces sometimes, but that's more of in a really lowbrow Family Guy kind of way. What can you do about
especially if you're going to talk about someone's work? Because if I'm going to, you know, and look, I've been in situations where as a fan, you say one thing and then years later you're next to that person in a room. So I've learned from firsthand experience that always treat the, you know, when you're actually critiquing work or you have an opinion, it's good to be humorous and fun because we all got to entertain. But when you're actually talking about the work, say something you would say to them. I love this. Not my favorite thing here, you know, but this was dope too. So like that, and if no creative person can handle that kind of feedback, I mean, then they shouldn't be working anyway. But Mangold, he can take it. I just think like, again, he's of the age group where he's yelling at the internet, you know, and you're just like, you know, it's not the first time. Just chill out.
I do think though, like as fans, you have to be on the side of the creatives.
Yeah.
And then if you're not, and then you're going to call yourself a fan of their work, that doesn't make sense.
It's weird.
So I think his greater point was completely valid. I agreed with what he was saying, because most 100%. Of the people who you see doing these grifts, I don't know if that guy's a grifter or not. I have no idea. So I'm not trying to get in a fight with him. I have no idea who he even is. But the people who you see doing grifts, I don't think they're usually fans of the stuff. Or
I didn't see them throwing much shade at him when the first Wolverine movie came out. Right. And that's legitimately like a studio, not so great film, you know, like and he even admitted to that much. He's like, yeah, I played ball and I didn't like it. So we made Logan, you know, and you can see him as a director in that one. So a great 1-2 punch is the Wolverine and Logan. Yeah. Same crew, but a different studio set, different mindset, you know, like that's like it's not Star Trek The Motion Picture and Wrath of Khan. It's like Star Trek 5 and Wrath of Khan. You know? Yeah. Like if Final Frontier had been the first movie, you know, it's more like that.
Yeah. And I also think, you know, while people don't like Indiana Jones 4 right now, I think it would be a mistake, or some people don't like Indiana Jones 4. I happen to love it actually overall. I do think that you kind of run into a place where you're kind of a fool right now to bet against Indiana Jones and to bet against Mangold, especially on the streak that he seems to be on. He seems to be a very good filmmaker. So
Yeah.
I'm if I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't be breaking sort of the charter of the Star Wars show and being like, well, it's so linked, I'm going to go with it. But I think it's going to be good. If it and so far there has been nothing to make us think otherwise. I mean, so Ford got hurt. Ford gets hurt all the time. Ford's been hurt in lots of movies that you like. Doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything.
It's nothing new about that.
But
I
look,
like that there's a little underdogness to it though too, man. Sometimes people got something to prove when they feel like, you know what I mean? Like there's not a guaranteed success for something. Like, and I like that. I like a little bit of that. You know, he'll come out swinging, this dude. You know, like I feel very good right now. I was with you. If Spielberg were directing it, I'd feel more. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. Is Spielberg into this, or is he just kind of doing an obligation? That's how I would feel about it. Deep down. And Mangold doesn't have to make Indiana Jones, so
absolutely. This is not something he has to deal with. So
no,
he obviously wanted to.
And we were really happy that my camera settings were holding firm, but once we hit the 2-hour 10 mark, now they have officially fallen apart. So we're going to end it here. And I want to thank everybody for hanging out in the chat with us. If you can't make the live shows, you could send your questions in via text, or I should say text, but via like a direct message or an email to MakingStarWars@gmail.com, whatever works for you. And then I will answer it on the show, and then you can watch the show later. I want to thank everybody who supports the channel by being a channel member, and I want to thank everybody who supports the show by being a Patreon supporter, and because it does help and it allows me to justify giving all my time to this, which I love to do. So, but it's great, and thank you for doing that. And for those of you who can't, no worries at all. I hope to see you guys in the chat. Having fun, because it's always cool to hang out with Star Wars buds. And thank you, Rob, for giving me 2 hours every day to hang out with me and shoot the shit, because I really appreciate that.
My pleasure, man. It's super fun, man. I just enjoy talking about this stuff with you, man.
Same. And so we will see you guys tomorrow. And here is our very upgraded ending.
It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships. It's not about spaceships.